So there was a royal wedding that recently happened between Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And there have been a lot of people, or I won't say a lot, there have been a couple of people who have discovered that there's a family tie between Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. But I already kind of knew because I had read about some things in history where it was allowed for cousins to marry. And I believe one of the reasons were a long time back, a long, long time back, it was for keeping money in the family. And it had to do with keeping everything more in the family. That was one of the reasons, or one of the biggest reasons, I believe. But also, I'm going to read out of the Independent what they say about this, what some people find, interesting or maybe new, a new concept that they weren't aware of. And so other countries will do things a little bit different in other different places. And so, what is done in one place in one country may not be done in another, or it may be outlawed also in other countries. So it depends on what is allowed. And so there, there's this article in the Independent, and it says there's nothing wrong with cousins getting married, scientists say. And so this is not coming from me. This is coming from an article. Before you get all fired up, don't. Um, so risk. This is the main concern that people have about this whole thing is risk of babies having genetic defects has been overstated. And so that was the main issue as to why people didn't think it was a safe situation. It wasn't normal for people to be marrying within their families um, because of the the gene pool um, that it could possibly cause the babies, the offsprings, to come out with some type of birth defect. So, science editor Steve Connor, this is a couple pictured here, and most likely their relation, their cousins. And this right here article goes into some of the more, how would you say, scientific issues revolving around cousins marrying. So the risk of giving birth to babies with genetic defects as a result of marriages between first cousins is no greater than that run by women over the age of 40 who become pregnant, according to two scientists who call for the taboo on first cousins. Now, this is first cousins. So, with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, they're not even first cousins. I believe it's even way further down the family tree line. So, first cousins is really even closer. It's like really close, So it goes on to say that according to two scientists who call for the taboo on first cousins families to be lifted. So women in their 40s are not made to feel guilty about having babies. And the same should apply to cousins who want to marry, said a professor, Diane Paul, of the University of Massachusetts in Boston, and a professor, Hamish Spencer, of the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand. So, although first cousin marriages are legal in Britain, okay, so I want to stop there. A lot of people who've been doing these videos and they've been talking and they're just now discovering that there's a possible lineages, or there is actually a lineage between Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. They're not first cousins. So first cousins is even more, there's more of a stigma behind it. But when it comes to other countries, what some people will scoff at in America, maybe in another country, it's not scoffed at, or it's not looked at in the same way. And so people got to understand this. This is why I say some people don't really read very often, or they don't get out very often, or they don't understand things, because they don't really know that what is done in one place is not done everywhere. So it's just like when people come from somewhere else and they bring their customs or culture to America, and some people have a problem with it because that's not what's done in America. They want people to assimilate to American culture and the things that are practiced here, or that are allowed, or that are legal. And so it sort of goes in line with that. So it says first cousins, although first cousin marriages are legal in Britain, there have been calls to ban the practice, because the reports that it has resulted in a higher than average incidence of birth defects in certain immigrant communities where it is common and culturally acceptable. So the big issue is not so much that they're cousins, is more the offspring is the issue. So, however, Professor tongue-tied, Professor Paul and Spencer said that the risk of congenital defects is about 2% higher than average for babies born to first cousin marriages, with the infant mortality about 4.4% higher. So those are more of the reasons, in terms of scientific reasons, why some people would not prefer it for that fact. So, which is what it is saying. Ooh, I'm going really fast. I just went really fast down here. Okay, so okay, I'm right where I need to be. It says, which is on a par with the risk to babies born to women over 40. So women over the age of 40 have similar risks of having children with birth defects, and no one is suggesting that they should be prevented from reproducing. So just because you tell a woman your risks are higher of having birth defects, that doesn't mean all women of 40 are now just going to stop having babies. Some will continue to have babies. Others will choose not to, because maybe they're done having their children at that age, or maybe they haven't had any kids and they want to have at least 1 or 2 kids, even if the risk is higher. So they're willing to take that risk. So women over the age of 40 have similar risk of having children with those type of birth defects, and no one is suggesting that they don't have babies or don't reproduce, Professor Spencer has stated. So whose co-authored study is published in the online journal Public Library of Science. First cousin marriages were once quite common in Europe. Okay, so this is the history of Europe. Some people are not aware of this. Some people are just now discovering this, but I already knew about this. It's no surprise to me at all. So all these videos, people are just now onto this. This is old news. This is not even news, really. So it was a practice in Europe. It was something that was very common. um, especially among the elite class. Charles Darwin married his first cousin Emma Wedgwood, but that changed. Now, I read here the elite class. Now, I remember reading something in the elite class. What does that mean? People who are with wealth. And so a lot of that is let's keep the money in the family. So that was one concept, as to why that was being done. So Charles Darwin married his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood, but that changed in the late 19th century as people, especially women, became more socially mobile and the risks became more evident. The stigma was attached to the first cousin marriages and was supported by early studies into human genetics suggesting that recessive versions of a gene which are not expressed unless in the children of genetically related parents, as well as more likely to be defective. Most states in America have either outlawed or restricted the practice. Okay, as has China, Taiwan, and both North and South Korea. Professor Spencer, an evolutionary zoologist, said that these laws should be repealed. So he's saying they should be repealed because it was a stigma that was attached to it, that the kids could come out with some types of birth defects. And then I've even heard people say some sort of racial overtones with this practice as well. So, especially in America, where he said they were drafted in a way that discriminated against the rural poor and immigrants. So neither the scientific nor social assumptions behind such legislation stand up to close scrutiny. So such legislation reflects outmoded prejudices about immigrants and rural poor and relies on oversimplified views of heredity. So there is no scientific grounding for it. So in the UK, the issue came to the fore when the MP Phil Wallace, now the immigration minister, claimed earlier this year that first cousin Britain resulted in an increasing number of children with health problems. So a lot of arranged marriages are with first cousins. And that produces lots of genetic problems in terms of disability in children, Mr. Wallace has said. So Peter Corey of St. Luke's Hospital in Bradford estimates that among people of Pakistan descent in the city, 55% whom have married first cousins, the risk of recessive genetic disorder, the type due to related parents, is between 10 and 15 times higher than the general population. So in 2004, a study found that 13 out of 1,000 Asian children were born in Bradford area had inherited recessive disorders, which can lead to disabilities. A family affair, cousins who tied the knot. So these are people who some people may, throughout history, have known that are famous or popular who have married cousins. So the rock and roll star infamously married a 13-year-old first cousin once removed, Jerry Lee Lewis, 10 years his junior in 1957. His popularity initially fell, but recovered when he began performing country and Western music. So Jesse James, a Missouri outlaw, he married his first cousin, Zerelda Z. Mims, in 1874 at the height of the James Younger Gang's reign. They had 2 children and remained together until Jesse's death, age 34, 12 years later. H.G. Wells, the science fiction author, The Time Machine, and The War of the Worlds, married his first cousin, Isabel Mary Wells, in 1891, but left her after 3 years to marry one of his students with whom he had two children. Edgar Allan Poe, the American Gothic poet, secretly married his 13-year-old first cousin, Virginia Eliza Clem, in 1834, and she died of tuberculosis in 1847. So Johann Sebastian Bach in 1707, Bach married his second cousin, Maria Barbara Bach, and had 7 of his 20 children with her. Khalid Mahmoud, the Birmingham MP, married his first cousin, Rifat, when he was in his 20s, and then he had a child, now a teenager, but separated in 1992. Charles Darwin, the naturalist, who worked forms of basis for contemporary evolutionary theory, married his first cousin Emma Wedgwood in 1839, and they had 10 children, to whom he was a devoted father. So this is nothing short of a history that has happened in the Britain area. So this Prince Harry, Meghan Markle thing that people are coming up with is not something new. It is not a new discovery. This is a practice that has gone on way before these people. And Markle and Prince Harry are not first cousins. They are relation, but not first cousins. And here it says Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are cousins according to a family tree. Okay, and then there's another article. Family tree reveals Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are related. Okay, so it says, so you have your cousins, then you have your first cousins, as speculation builds that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry will soon get engaged to someone. So let me read the first article here. In the Ellie, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Okay, so Hearst operates. Okay. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are distant cousins, according to the family tree. They're not first cousins. The 36-year-old actress and the 32-year-old Beau are reportedly cousins. If Markle part end of it, they're not even first cousins. He is a prince raised in London, the son of his first heir to the Britain throne. She is an actress born in California, the daughter of a yoga instructor and a former television lighting director. But despite their different upbringings, Prince Harry and the American girlfriend Meghan Markle have more in common than previously believed. A genealogical investigation by the Mail on Sunday has found that the famous pair are actually distant cousins related through the late 15th century ancestor Queen Mother. Okay, the publication reports that the suit's star connection to the royal family comes as a result of her family ancestry dating all the way back to High Sheriff of County Durham, Ralph Bowes, an ancestor of Markle from 15 generations ago. Bowes' family seat was Streatham Castle, situated in the northeast of England, and his grandson, Christopher Halsey, moved to America in 1632, helping to found Nantucket, Massachusetts. Fast forward a few years, and boom, Meghan Markle is now in the family. Meanwhile, Bowes' great-grandson, Sir George Bowes, became a member of the Parliament during the reign of Charles III. And to cut a very long story short, Prince Harry came along. And here he is pictured there. And up top here to my right is Meghan Markle, the new wife-to-be. So what's more bizarre is the fact that Prince Harry's ancestor, Henry, reportedly executed a relative of Markle. Okay? So let me look really quick. Okay. intermission. I will be right back because I am looking at something really important here. Okay, I'm going to put something up. What is it? I'm looking at a list here. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading. So it goes on to say that the reigning in Britain, there was a plot orchestrated by a man named Lord Halsey the First, Baron Halsey, Hussey or Halsey, yeah, it's actually Hussey of Sleaford, and the great 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 grandfather to Christopher Hussey, which you see above. Okay. Alrighty, to attempt to overthrow the monarch, as the result of Henry had him beheaded. Okay, so this is historical stuff. So now, before everyone starts yelling incest and Harry and Meghan shared lineage, we'd like to point out that if you go back far enough to the Middle Ages, you're probably related to the man sitting next to you on the bus or your colleagues that sat opposite of you. And so, really, what they're really trying to say is our gene pool and who we're related to is so wide, so wide. It is not just your immediate family. Some people just think everybody in their immediate family is who they're related to. Our gene pool and who our relatives are is a lot bigger than what you think. So, a genetic survey in 2013 found that all Europeans living today are related to the same set of ancestors who lived 1,000 years ago. And you don't have to go back much farther in time to find that everyone in the world is related to one another. Yes, okay. So, this is nothing new. So, who would have thought? Hmm. So the news comes days after Channel 4 aired the documentary looking into the California star's life titled When Harry Met Meghan, A Royal Romance. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole article. And so what I had paused on was I don't do Roman numerals. Some people probably are good at Roman numerals. I'm not a Roman numeral person. So so you have to really you know, bear with me because I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, if I'm saying I don't want to be wrong when I say the Roman numerals because I don't read Roman numerals. But anyway, let me see, because it's eating me alive. 'Cause oh, okay, let me write it in here. And some people may be extremely good at this, but I'm not good at Roman numerals. I just do regular numerals. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much that article, and that's what it's talking about. And so let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was right, actually. I wanted to say 8, but I said, okay, I remember the V is like 5. And then after that, and I was trying to read. So, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Because like if there's that symbol before the 5, that's 4, and then just the V is 5, and then if you do the other symbols, it's 5, 6, 7, and 8. So he's Henry VIII, reportedly executed a relative of Merkel. And so everybody's so in an uproar over this couple. I mean, for Christ's sakes, there's so many people that they get married, they get divorced. It's not, that big of a deal. So I guess the big deal though for a lot of people is that she's half black and that she's more considered in American culture for some as being more black, and then some people say she's not. People can be very mean, and they can be very mean to people who are half of something, and it's crazy because most of these people that are doing this, they don't know who all they're related to. And some of them may be related to people who are not all black, but you won't hear them say that. And they won't talk about that. And the way history has done a lot of people, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing. There might be a story behind it. Maybe it's negative, maybe it isn't negative. I'm sure there was some people who, even though it might have not been the thing to do, there were interracial coupling or people who, willingly went with people who were of another culture or background or nationality or race. Now, I do know some people are going to say, yeah, well, what about slavery when people were raped and all this kind of stuff? Yeah, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that. But that is a concept as well, that some of these hecklers, if you really think about it and you think about history, you don't know if all of your relatives are just black. They may not be. And any African American person really shouldn't be making fun of people who are half of this or a mix of this and a mix of that, because if you look at our history, you may not be all of who you think you are. So I don't see it as being something funny or something to be scoffed at. And so with her, she can actually pinpoint where hers comes from, because her mother and father at one time were together, and she knows that she has an African American mother and a Caucasian father. But there are many of us African Americans who don't know all of our great grandparents. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. It isn't a good thing. What I'm saying is that's my point. It's nothing to be mean at somebody else. I've seen really mean, hateful videos where people are saying, oh, that person's not black, because they are half of something, and you're not all black. You just look a particular way, or maybe you have more of the African features, but you don't know who all of the people are in your family. Some people will lie and say they do, but there's a lot of African American people who really are not able to trace all of their roots. And so this is not funny. I think it's very immature, and people need to grow up, and they need to really read the history of African American or people of color, because that's why we're called people of color, because we could be some of everything. As a matter of fact, a lot of the other people come from out of Mother Africa. So I don't think it's funny at all to make funny and scoff, make a funny joke and scoff at people who are half of this and half of that, when you don't know what you're half of or a quarter of. So that was the article. So this was one article in the Ellie, and the other one was in the Independent, and it did more of the history of people, or the scientific version of people who were marrying first cousins, which is very close. And so with that being said, you can give your comments and your thoughts within a really you know, how would I say, educated way, because this is not anything new. So for those of you who are just discovering this and you're making videos to make this shine light of this, to make this seem like it's some kind of scandal, it isn't. You're sadly mistaken and you're sadly wrong and incorrect. This is something that has happened way before Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and they are not first cousins. So, yes, and you don't know who you have been with that you could possibly have some kind of kinship with, And so there's so many people going around doing all this stuff as like they're proving proving a point. They're not really, all they're doing is being extremely hateful and showing, how uneducated they are by scoffing at people because they're half of this and half of that, or a part of this and part of that, when you don't even know what all your people are part of, And then when people are embracing other parts of their culture other than just African culture, they say they're part Indian and they're part Native American, people are bashing them. Oh, you're not this and you're not all black. Well, guess what? There's no such thing as all of one thing. There isn't. So get off your soapbox and get that out of your head, because it isn't true. It just isn't. And especially now in this time, with all of the mixing and all the different coupling and everything. No. And these people who, if they identify as they are black or they're African American, then that's who they are. If they identify as biracial, then that's who they are. But to make fun of people like that is really stupid. It is stupid. I'm saying this. It's dumb, it's stupid, and it's immature. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.